Right, let me take you now to Johannesburg, where eNCA's Dan Moyane is on standby. He is building up to the memorial service that will be taking place there at the St. Mary's Cathedral in Johannesburg, which is an integral part of the story of leadership within the Anglican Church of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Braden, one of the things I've got to tell you, Braden, is that I'm quite envious of you. You have the right shade of purple in as far as your tie is concerned. I took a tie that in my color blindness I believed to be purple. It is purple. I will argue that it is purple, but actually it might be a tinge of pink more than it is purple. So I'm envious of you as you build up to that memorial service on your side.
Oh, Makutra, don't worry too much. I happen to have five purple ties. I've been wearing one each since Monday in honor, in our own little way here on eNCA, honoring the late Archbishop. But Makutra, don't be too envious, because I'm also envious of you, your position there, and I'm taking a leaf out of your brilliant broadcasting book now, and I just want to show our viewers, before I speak to our next guest here inside the St. Mary's Cathedral, just to give our viewers what you said is a flavor, but of what's happening currently inside here, the St. Mary's Cathedral in Johannesburg. This is the cathedral where the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was ordained way back in 1961, and before that he also became a deacon. He was also deaconized here before he became a priest. And in just under an hour from now, a special Thanksgiving service will be held inside here. They are getting ready, and the worshippers are filing in, mourners are filing in, those who want to be part of this special Anglican Thanksgiving service from 11 o'clock. So that's the flavor that you can see right now of the preparations as they finalize for the service. But for now, Makuchwa, I'm joined by Dr. Mary Lowe. She is here to talk to us as a leader of the Women's Union of the Anglican Church, the Diocese of Johannesburg of the Anglican Church. And she also happens, Makuchwa, you might be interested to know, to be the niece of the veteran struggle stalwart, the late J.B. Marks. But she's here, of course, to speak as a member of the leader of the Women's Union of the Anglican Church. Dr. Lowe, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. We're not far away from the Thanksgiving Mass that will be taking place here from 11 o'clock inside here, the St. Mary's Cathedral Church. What's going through your mind as a worshipper as we pay respects to the late Arch?
I'm feeling honored, and thank you to eNCA for giving me the opportunity to give a few words of this remarkable giant and stalwart of the Anglican Church. But before I begin to give a few words, I'd also like to say good morning to all our fellow South African citizens and viewers, actually South African in general, you know, each and every person who's sitting in South Africa, as well as the global world, because I believe it's not only South Africans who's in a state of mourning, but the entire global world, because this remarkable man, though he's the son of the soil of South Africa, he belonged to the world, so he's the son of the world as well. I just would like to give a few words of what Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu actually meant to me. I would say, as an Anglican, I'm a member of the Anglican Mothers Union Guild within the Diocese of Johannesburg, but I'm currently based at St. Patrick's in Melbourne as a worshipper there. I believe Archbishop Emeritus, he stood firmly for all human rights in society, in particular for the marginalized. If I look in this day and age, there's a lot of xenophobia towards foreign nationals from other countries. And then when it comes to the LGBTI community, there's a lot of transphobia, homophobia, biphobia. And he stood against that firmly. You know, when we look at the Palestinian people under the rule of the Zionist movement in Israel, how they have been ill-treated, you know, based on the length of birth. He stood against that as well. So I think as a human rights fighter, that is why I can say I can speak very profoundly of Tutu. You know, as they say, dynamite comes in small packages. I believe Desmond Tutu is the dynamite of the Anglican Church because he's so small in stature, but he meant so much to us, not just meant to us because he was an archbishop, but for what he stood for. If you look currently in the corruption happening within our country, in particular from leaders, in particular from parliamentarians, that is why I feel Desmond Tutu firmly stood his grounds, you know, in particular when people say your role is in the pulpit, stay out of politics. That is when he stood firm because he believed the church should take a stand when it comes to corruption in society, not because they're looking down on the corrupt, but they want to convict them and ensure that they walk in the right pathway and serve those they are called to serve.
Now, do you believe, Dr. Lowe, that the church today is fulfilling that role that you are just expressing that the late Arch represented?
I wouldn't really say the church is fulfilling that role presently, and I'm speaking as an individual on that, not on behalf of the Anglican Church, my own personal opinion, because I believe a lot of clergy from all denominations in society, very few are vocal when it comes to things which is anti in society. We have clergy nowadays, for example, if you look at some of the marches usually that takes place in KZN, you know, court cases, we have clergy standing up against those who have committed wrong in society, and clergy come strongly in defense of them. And those are the things I think that Archbishop stood for up until the point of his death, to say as a church, we need to be vocal. You know, you don't condemn people, but to stand up and ensure that people walk in the right pathway, which is the way God would have expected us to live in society.
One of the things that Arch said about reconciliation, we know he was also the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the 90s. He said that there cannot be reconciliation without justice. That's what we need to fight for, and he was really against injustice everywhere. From your perspective, where the country is at today, as a woman of faith who's a member of the Anglican Church, you know, you're not speaking on behalf of the church as such. Do you think we are on the right path, or what should be done to be on the right path for this country to be reconciled?
I think for this country to be reconciled, I feel our people are still, our citizens throughout South Africa are still very much laid back and dwelling on the past, you know. Every thing going wrong in society, they blame it on the apartheid era. And I believe in decades ago, you know, we are in a democratic country. We need to put the past behind, and as part of justice, is to ensure that the church stands firm when it comes to promoting things that are just in society. You know, we see even nowadays clergy abusing congregants, and I believe those are some of the things Archbishop Tutu would have strongly condemned. So I think the church should take a firm stand by promoting the values of the gospel within the church walls, you know, and making the church accommodating to everybody in society. Because if we look at the church nowadays, I can't say they firmly stood against justice because, as I said, the LGBTI communities, they have been marginalized. That's why people are opening your metropolitan churches for the gay and lesbian community.
But the Archbishop spoke against it.
He spoke against it.
Where he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that if he gets to heaven and finds that it's a homophobic heaven, he'll rather go to the other place, or as he said, the warmer place.
Yes, I agree, and I believe that is the role the church will take on, you know. It's making their doors open to each and every person without labeling people, without stigmatizing people. And then promoting...
It's about, in other words, to use a different word, it's about inclusivity, in other words.
Inclusiveness, yes. To stand against, to make the church an inclusive church, and also to fight against the inequalities within society, as I said. There's a lot of inequalities, in particular when it comes to the role of women. I'm speaking as a Mothers Union member. Women are still very much being marginalized. Women are told that their place is still with, you know, in the kitchen, and that male should take a key role. It's not just about women's guilt, but I think the church should be a prophetic voice to ensure that women are protected. If the church is becoming a prophetic voice and then surely we would overcome all the ill health that you find in society, in particular when it comes to gender-based violence.
Okay, finally, Dr. Lowe, I have to ask you this because you've told me you are the niece of the late struggle stalwart J.B. Marks.
Correct.
But you are here, of course, as a woman of faith, a worshipper of the Anglican Church, and you've touched on a very important issue about women's emancipation or lack thereof, because women are still very much marginalized. But from that perspective, you come from a political family, but you're a woman of faith, okay? In your view, going forward to honor the legacy of Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, what should the women of South Africa do?
There's a lot of the women in South Africa should do. I believe women should take a firm stand, not just against gender-based violence. We find there's a lot of women in South Africa who still cannot go to your government departments and complete a basic form, you know, for any application. So I think women should make sure that we promote literacy within society. There's a lot of unemployment among women. We should ensure, in particular rural women, that we promote projects that can make that can take women to long-term financial sustainability going forward, so that they're able to support their children. Because I think part of the problem that leads to a lot of gender-based violence in South Africa, forgive me for saying that, but my honest opinion, I believe women are so much dependent on men, you know, that to the extent, even if they've been abused, they will hold on there because they're struggling financially. Not all women, but there is a few. So I think that is where we should come in and ensure that women are, going forward financially sustainable, so that they're able to provide for their families, and in the event where they're going through abuse, they don't need to depend on somebody in order to bring an income into the house, but they know the person can do something for themselves.
That's financial independence, you think it's important.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mary Lowe. Dr. Mary Lowe is a member of the Anglican Church's Mothers Union in the Diocese of Johannesburg, where today it is hosting this special Thanksgiving service that's going to start in about 45 minutes or so here at the St. Mary's Cathedral in Johannesburg. This is where the late Arch began his priesthood way back in 1961 when he was ordained as a priest. We will come back to you again before 11 o'clock, hopefully, to speak to one or two more guests. I'm hoping as well that Mpho Phalatse, the mayor, the new mayor of Johannesburg, might be able to join us.